Between by Sister Says Go. Summary. Midoriya Izuku has seen and heard things no one else has since he was 4. If he didn't know things he shouldn't have been able to, nobody would have ever believed him. Most people still don't want to. He's a strange, almost terrifying child who knows far too much and gives most people chills, despite his best intentions. After all, he's currently a window to what's between. One for all makes him a door. Chapter 1. Open Your Eyes. It was an exciting Sunday for Midoriya Izuku. Mind you, just about every day was exciting for him currently. After all, his best friend Kacchan had just gotten his quirk not too long ago. The incredible, super-heroic ability to create explosions in his hands. And as Izuku himself just turned 4 the other day, his own quirk should be appearing any day. All he had to do was wait. In the meantime, however, he was going to keep himself busy by trying to figure out what it could be. After all, his mom could pull small objects and his dad could apparently breathe fire, though he was never home, so Izuku had never seen it for himself. Maybe he would be able to control fire. That would be super cool and very useful. Or he might end up with something completely unrelated. That happened sometimes. It didn't really matter what kind of quirk he got, though. He was sure that whatever it was, with it, he would be able to become a hero. As it was, he really hoped he got his quirk today, so that he could show his friends on Monday. He was one of the youngest in his class, and therefore one of the few still without a quirk. He couldn't let Kacchan down either. He had told him to hurry up and get his quirk already so that they could practice being heroes together. He had just had breakfast not long ago, and while his mom was cleaning, he was sitting in his little desk in his room, doing his best to take notes on Kacchan's quirk in a brand new notebook his mom had gotten him, that he had painstakingly labeled Hero Analysis No. 1. He was quite proud of it, despite having it done all in crayon so far. To be fair, he was only 4. Not that it mattered to him. He just wanted to put together what he knew about Kacchan's quirk so that he could help his friend to be an even better hero. He had only gotten as far as writing down the basics, such as quirk name and default use, however, before he felt an intense pain behind his eyes. Eyes snapping shut in shock and pain, he fell backwards out of his chair with a cut-off yelp. He felt an incredible burning feeling all across his skin for about half a second before everything aside from his eyes and the inside of his head went back to normal. There, the pain was so intense that he couldn't think. He could barely do anything. Only lay on the ground, curled up, unable to move or do anything aside from feel what he was sure were tears streaming down his face. It felt like his eyes were on fire and his brain was melting out of his ears or possibly crawling around in his skull like a slug. Was he dying? Was this what death felt like? He didn't have a clue. All he knew was that it was the single most painful thing he had ever experienced so far in his short life. What felt like hours later, or maybe minutes, the pain went down enough for him to realize 2 things. 1, it was a lot noisier outside, like the amount of people making noise had somehow doubled. And 2, now that the pain was really starting to subside, he was pretty sure something was still wrong with his eyes. They felt like when he had tried to go cross-eyed for too long. Hesitantly, he cracked his eyelids open, only to snap upright in confusion, ignoring the slight nausea moving so fast gave him. The colors were all wrong. The colors were correct, but there were too many of them. There weren't enough colors. There were no colors at all. His mind couldn't seem to decide what it was looking at, and it felt like he was looking at several things at once. More than he should be able to with only 2 eyes. He blinked, and the colors all settled, though something still felt off. He blinked again, and while nothing changed, he was pretty sure something was still seriously wrong. He was about to go get his mom when his eyes caught movement outside and his jaw dropped. It didn't even look like he was on Earth. Sure, the sky was the right color and what buildings he could see from the floor looked the same, but beyond that, the sky looked wrong. It looked like it was swimming, pulsing like a gentle wave. Starting to panic, the colors he could see around him shifted to look just left of wrong again before snapping back like a rubber band, jumping back and forth before settling back to normal. Carefully, he got up, making his way towards the window before stopping in shock yet again. It was crowded outside. It looked like a parade of people with various extreme mutation quirks, and yet most of them were being ignored by those who looked more normal. He saw several of them be walked through by people without being noticed, then saw several more act like various walls weren't even there. He saw what looked like a dragon with far too many limbs fly by without a care, and a giant spider-like being walking over a nearby skyscraper. And yet nobody was panicking. Nobody even noticed. It was like, to them, None of it was even happening. Then the colors flickered again, and he saw it. Most of the strange beings, those who weren't just people out for a Sunday stroll, had an ethereal quality to them. In fact, as the colors shifted even more, he could see an overlay of forests and strangely shaped structures superimposed over what should be there, namely Musutafu. A blink, and the colors shifted back to normal again, though he could still see the ghosts of the other places, while the various specters traveling about were easy to distinguish from what was real. His headache, however, was slowly increasing. What was happening? Had he gone insane? Was this what this was? 4 years old and already crazy? He really hoped not. Being a hero would be kind of hard if he was seeing things that weren't real. Taking a shaky step back from the now mildly terrifying window, he turned to leave his room, hoping his mom might be able to help him. Moms can fix anything, after all. Once he had finished turning around, though, he froze, choking out a sound like a strangled cat. One of those things was in his room. It was huge, probably 9 feet tall, hunched over with arms almost as long as its body, fingers as long as Izuku's arm, wearing what looked like a tattered old suit. Its shoulders were extremely broad, while its torso was very thin and long. The legs were bent backwards, and barely had a head at all, more just a lump on its shoulders. A beaten old top hat sat at an angle on the head lump, and its skin was wrong. Oh, so very wrong. It was both blue and red at the same time, without a touch of purple. A color impossibility, and it hurt to look at, and then it turned and saw him. Teeth. So many teeth, more than should fit in its already impossibly wide mouth. Rows upon rows, razor sharp and needle thin, settled underneath a set of small, beady eyes. It saw him and smiled, and even more teeth appeared.
Why, if I didn't know better, I would say you could see me.
It got down on all fours and brought its face up close, noticing how Izuku flinched before settling back in what appeared to be surprise.
Well, would you look at that? You can. How fascinating,
the thing said, before smiling so wide that the sides of its mouth disappeared around the sides of its head. Izuku couldn't help it. He screamed.